Hi, I'm Matt Hutcheson, and we're here at a plot near our seed consultant's main office. We're going to take a look at some of the issues we're seeing, diseases, some of the problems we've seen in the fields around this area, and also some of the problems that we're seeing across the state of Indiana today. Some of the things we'll be looking at today are diseases in corn, such as common rust, gray leaf spot, northern corn leaf blight. We're also going to look at some disease we're seeing in soybeans, such as frogeye. And then we'll start with one issue that we're seeing due to the wet weather we've had this year, and that's nitrogen loss, denitrification, and nitrogen leaching, and what that's doing to our corn plants right now. So we pulled some leaves and corn ears from a neighboring field here, just a little bit down the road, where we're seeing some nitrogen deficiency. We've had some pretty heavy rains this year, and in areas where we've had ponding and heavy rain events, we're starting to see nitrogen deficiency show up on the leaves. So you'll see a V-shaped yellowing that starts out at the tip of the leaf and works its way down towards the stalk. On some leaves it could be farther along than others. It'll start at the lower leaves on the plant and work its way up. And on these plants where we're seeing this nitrogen deficiency symptoms show up on the leaves, we've pulled some ears, and we're seeing some significantly stunted ears and some tip back kernels not filling out towards the tip. And this is one concern we have. May not affect an entire field, but it will affect parts of fields where there was significant rain and ponding. So we'll take a little bit of a yield hit there because of this stunting and the loss of nitrogen that's going to affect grain fill. But one concern we have as we look forward towards harvest is what the corn plant will do when it has this nitrogen deficiency and it's trying to fill out the ear. It will cannibalize the stalk in order to fill that ear out. So as it's weakening its stalk to try to fill the ear out, we have concerns this harvest about stalk integrity and standability issues. If you have areas where you're seeing nitrogen deficiency, and you may have some stunting and definitely some stunted ears that are filling out this time of year with a lack of water, now in kind of a dry spell and a lack of nitrogen, we're going to see some cannibalization of the stalk. And we have concerns that if that stalk is left standing late into harvest, it may go down. So keep in mind where you're seeing these deficiencies. You want to get out there early, get that corn harvested before you have problems with lodging. So one concern we've had for this growing season is disease in corn. We've seen a higher incidence of common rust in most areas this year than we have in previous years. We have seen some gray leaf spot, which in some cases can be confused with the common rust if the rust pustules are rubbed off. So you want to look for those parallel lines on the gray leaf spot lesion. We have seen some northern corn leaf blight, but not to the extent of the pressure we've seen in the past few years, which in some cases has been surprising based on the weather we've had, but this year northern has not been as big of an issue. And in some parts of our territory, especially as you head south down into the Indiana-Kentucky border, we have heard some incidences of southern rust, which has moved up in some areas, and we've recently found it in southern Indiana and parts of southern Ohio. It has moved out of Kentucky this year, moved a little bit farther north. Southern rust is especially a concern because it has the potential to do more damage to yield than common rust. Common rust we see year in and year out on some level. This year we've seen it worse than previous years. But southern rust, which has been able to move up from the southern growing regions into the eastern corn belt, is a concern because many seed companies may not have ratings for some of the hybrids adapted to this area, and some of them may not have great resistance. And because of that, southern rust is definitely something you want to keep an eye on if you spot it early in the year, and potentially spray a fungicide to keep that damage from occurring. So when you're looking for southern rust in your fields, you'll see the orange colored pustules on top, like we do here on this leaf. If it's minor, it may look similar to other common rust type issues, but it is a very distinct color orange, and it will move across the plant and become more of a problem much quicker. Spread to other leaves and spread across the leaves pretty quickly if it becomes established. So while the beans look very healthy here at this location, one disease we've noticed, especially as we head to the southern parts of our sales territory, is frogeye leaf spot. We've got a little bit of that here. I haven't seen enough in this area to warrant spraying a fungicide, but we do have some showing up on different varieties. One thing that allows you to do is determine which varieties have good resistance, and if you're planning on planting soybeans in the future in the same field, which varieties to pick with that better resistance so that frogeye leaf spot is not as much of a problem for your future crop. In this field, there are a few varieties with the lesions. You can see the frogeye lesion is a tannish gray colored lesion with a dark border. Sometimes it can be kind of purplish border. These leaves here have more lesions than most of the leaves we can find in this field, so not a lot of pressure, but there is some out there. And it does allow you to evaluate which varieties could be a little more susceptible and which varieties are better adapted to your fields where you may see some frogeye pressure. The general condition of the soybean crop in this particular field and plot is very good. We did have a lot of rains here throughout the growing season, but it's well drained, and we didn't have too many issues with water standing or ponding. We do have good pods all the way to the top of the plant, and very healthy root system, as well as healthy plants overall. There are other areas where we're looking at more issues with wet areas of fields where we may have some drowned out spots. We had some diseases earlier, Phytophthora root rot, and just plants that died as a result of being drowned out or too much water and saturated soils. So in those fields we may see some more of a problem. We may have a little bit of a yield loss there. This particular location here looks like it still has excellent yield potential. We continue to get rains in August, and we'll be looking at very good yields as we head towards fall. We have had a pattern of cooler weather in the last week or so, and we're seeing temperatures at night in the 50s and temperatures during the day that don't get much above 70. And so with that kind of cooler pattern of weather, we have had some questions on the possibility of an extended growing season. We've heard, based on calculations, that certain areas of the eastern corn belt are as many as 150 to 200 growing degree days behind normal. And because of this cooler weather, we're not gaining growing degree days at the normal rate we normally would. So looking forward, we may be looking at a little bit of an extended growing season that could push harvest later, that could affect grain fill, and also could make for wetter corn at the end of the year when we're normally harvesting drier corn because of this extended harvest season. As we head towards fall and we get ready for harvest, there's a few things we want to keep in mind. One we touched on a little bit is the stalk strength of our corn. With those loss of nitrogen we've seen in areas, we want to keep in mind that there could be some weak stalks out there. Scouting will help determine what our stalk strength is, pinching stalks and pushing on stalks to see if they'll stand or if they're easily broken over. The fields where you identify weaker stalks are the fields you want to harvest first to try to avoid a problem with lodging. Also, this time of year it's good to scout to see what diseases you have out there and what issues you may find. If you have compaction or problems you can fix this fall, or if it's just part of making a management plan for next year in terms of what hybrids and varieties to use. As we look at soybeans, we have seen some weedy areas of the state of Indiana. One important thing to keep in mind is if you run a weed through the combine, you're just going to scatter it out and potentially seed it across your field. So keep that in mind as you head towards some of your weedy fields. Make sure you don't run an amaranth species through your combine and end up seeding it across an entire field. I'm Matt Hutcheson. Thanks for watching today, and we'll catch up with you in September.